Netanyahu, as we've been saying, at the White House tonight. Some of the issues are related to ending the war in Gaza and coming up with a peace plan. Now, we're hearing latest reports that there may be movement signaling a positive direction, if you will, in terms of achieving a ceasefire between the Israeli government as well as the Palestinian armed group Hamas. Let's get more on this. Bring in SABC News correspondent Nick Harper. Nick, good to have you with us. So the words very close are being used in reference to the march towards some sort of ceasefire. What more are we learning about the detail, and what would have to be in place to make it happen?
That's right. Good evening. Yeah, a lot of optimism going into this meeting in a way that we perhaps haven't seen so far in this almost 2-year conflict. But I think it's worth noting that really the confidence and the optimism is coming really in the majority from the US side. The US President Donald Trump has been saying that there is a real chance of greatness in the Middle East, also posting on social media that everyone is on board for something special, saying that he's had a very good response to a peace plan that he's put forward, saying that everyone wants to make a deal. But standing in his way is the Israeli Prime Minister, who really is the person that needs convincing. Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House, they were meant to hold a joint press conference that was due to get underway an hour ago. It's running very, very late, which suggests those behind closed-door meetings are continuing, and they are getting into the details of all of this, because contained within this US proposed peace plan are a number of things that so far the Israeli Prime Minister has not been on board with, positions that he is staunchly against. For example, how Gaza would be run if a ceasefire were to happen. The US is suggesting that the Palestinian Authority would play some part in the running of Gaza. Of course, Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing government do not want that to happen. There's also the issue of really how a Palestinian state could be created out of what has taken place. That two-state solution, another thing that the Prime Minister is against but is proposed in that peace plan. So trying to get the Palestinians and the Israelis on board with this peace plan, that's going to be Donald Trump's main challenge, even though he sounds confident at this stage.
There's also reporting tonight that Netanyahu has apologized to the Qatari emir for the attacks in Doha, the capital, a few weeks ago, which were targeting Hamas leaders who are in Doha, as part of a US request to facilitate negotiations.
Yeah, a stunning development this. Yes, the Qataris involved in mediation efforts, speaking to Hamas as part of these peace negotiations. Earlier in September, Israel carried out strikes on that delegation team who were in Qatar, in the city of Doha, killing several people, including a Qatari personnel member who was there on the scene. We are told that during those behind closed-door meetings, Benjamin Netanyahu was involved in a phone call, speaking directly to the Qatari Prime Minister. And during that phone call, really climbed down on his past positions, going as far as to apologise for violating the sovereignty of Qatar by carrying out that airstrike, but also apologising for the killing of that Qatari person who was killed in that strike. Now, that is something that is quite extraordinary, a development that was not expected, and certainly not expected to take place during the course of today. But we're also told from a White House statement that came out after the phone call that Donald Trump was part of that phone call, and all three leaders spoke about a desire from both the Israeli side and the Arab side to try and find some sort of peaceful way forward for the Middle East.
And what about, Nick, the issue of some in the political circles in Israel basically suggesting that the annexation of the West Bank may also be imminent? Donald Trump had said he was against that. He would not allow it to happen last week. Is that still the US position tonight?
Well, it certainly appears to be. This, of course, coming about off the back of a summit held in New York at the United Nations General Assembly last week, on Monday, a week ago today, in which we saw multiple Western countries for the first time recognising the Palestinian state. The Israelis were so unhappy with that they came up with a retaliation plan to annex part of the West Bank. Donald Trump, when he was asked about that last week, said it was not something that he could support and was something that he was going to tell Benjamin Netanyahu during today's meetings must not happen. Of course, that is another thing that the Israelis want to take place over the coming days and weeks, as well as those things in the peace plan that they don't want to happen. So a number of positions that they currently hold that the US seems to be against. So the suggestion being that we are seeing a pivotal moment in that relationship between the US and Israel. Donald Trump has been staunchly defending the Israelis up until now, even in the face of growing international pressure, condemnation, frustration at the humanitarian situation in Gaza as famine has grown. But we now seem to be at a position where the US president may be ready to break with the Israeli prime minister if he cannot get the Israeli prime minister on side and agree to this peace plan.
And
it
as
really
was
is a make
speaking to you,
or break moment. We could see some movement on this peace plan or potentially the end of relations between the two countries.
apologies for that, Nick. As we're talking to you, we're looking at pictures from the White House where it appears a briefing between the US President Donald Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington, who's visiting, is imminent. We're expecting to hear more detail about what the White House is set to release, a 20-point plan to end Israel's war on Gaza. So once that happens, we'll hopefully get some words on that. Nick Harper, for now, thank you very much for your reporting from the United States.